Okay, can everyone see me? So I think we can start in a second. Marvin, for a bit, can you unshare your presentation for just a while?
Share it. I can unshare it.
Unshare it.
All right, stop sharing. Done.
Yeah, just for a bit. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome everyone to today's session. This is, as we've counted already, our 5th session at the Outgrowth program that we're doing starting from October until the 10th of December. And today we have 2 very, very lovely speakers, and we're going to start with the first one that we already introduced everywhere, and that we've kind of explained and shared all the details about Marvin that we've gathered. And he hopefully will give you very useful insights about finding funding. So Marvin, I'm gonna give a word to you, the digital stage to you, and you can now again share your presentation. And thank you so much for actually joining us today and doing this. We're very happy to have you.
No, thank you very much for having me. I'm honored. All right, let's hope this works. Is it working? Is it working?
Yes.
You see it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so anyways, hello everyone. So I was told to talk a little bit about fundraising. And so in this presentation, giving a quick introduction to myself, give you a sense of sort of the landscape right now, sort of like bigger picture. Then I'm gonna talk a little bit about some basics of fundraising. And then I'm gonna talk about some very, very specific tactics as well too. And so this presentation should roughly be about 40 minutes. 40 to 45 minutes, and there'll be roughly 10 to 15 minutes of questions, hopefully. So hopefully you have some questions. One quick question for you, Lena. Are we okay with people like stopping and asking questions, or should I go through the presentation first and then they ask me afterwards? Because I'm happy to do whatever. Just depends, I guess, on how many people. Just forgot to ask you that.
It's okay if you ask questions on the go, but remember that they're going to reply slower. So it's fine if you go through them. You can ask questions and say, hey, please post it in the chat or in the Facebook chat as well, as we're doing it through both of these channels. So it's fine if you do it this way, but just expect a bit of later response to everything.
So I think that's a great point. So I think what I'll do is I'll go through the presentation. If there's some things that not super clear that I explain, I'll try to take pauses and give you a chance to sort of like ask. If you don't ask, you can't think about, you're too shy, then maybe ask it afterwards, or you want to noodle on it. But if there is anything that I say that's either unclear or you want more elaboration, like please let me know, because this presentation is meant to be useful for you. And so just to give you a view, where it's like I usually this presentation is one that I've condensed down from like a lot. So for example, when I ran the core 500 startups accelerator program, I would do close to 6 to 7 sessions on fundraising, right? Like just like breakdown. So it's very, very hard where these are 2-hour sessions. So it's almost like 12 hours just on fundraising. So I've tried to condense this. It's almost like fundraising for dummies, right? So not that you're dummies, but just like the simplified version. So bear in mind, I'm trying to condense a lot of information here. All right, so who I am. This is my established credibility slide. So why should you listen to this jerk? And so I've been in Silicon Valley now for about 21 years. Did 2 years at an e-commerce startup that raised about $64 million actually, back in 99, 2000. I was executive at Yahoo for about 10.5 years. I mentored a lot of different startup accelerators, and I was most recently a partner at 500 Startups. So I started the San Francisco office and ran the core accelerator program for about 6 years. So between the accelerator and the seed fund that I ran, I invested in close to 414 pre-seed and seed stage startups around the world. I left 500 end of last year, and this year is kind of my sabbatical year. So I'm doing some angel investing. I've been advising a bunch of family offices and some early sort of like also some other new VC funds. And so I'm still in the business. And so a lot of what I've learned, a lot of what I'm sharing with you is just the things I've learned, from a lot of my startup founders, what I've taught my founders, and what I've seen the ones who succeeded in fundraising, seen the ones who have not succeeded in fundraising, and distill these lessons. All right, so of course we're in 2020, so I have to sort of talk about the pandemic time, right? So this has been a huge reset of sort of like everything in the startup ecosystem, everything in the world, but also everything in the startup ecosystem. And so it's no different than sort of what's happening on the fundraising side. And so one of the first questions I ask founders is just like, even though this is a fundraising talk, I think that generally speaking, depending on your business model, depending on your situation, the default, I think, unfortunately, because fundraising is seen as such a sexy thing right now, most startups and most companies, you want to be very, very thoughtful about whether fundraising actually makes sense for you and whether you want to go down the VC funding route. Because the VC funding route is a go big, go home strategy. So the way I like it is just if you decide to go down the VC route, you can't get off that path. And so just understand that sort of like once you make that decision, the way I think about it, it's like if you decide to go down the path, you're committing to it. You can't get off that path. It's like getting married and you can't divorce them. And so just keep that in mind. Or just like most businesses are better off not fundraising, even though this is a talk on fundraising, right? So I want, like you need to be very, very thoughtful about the process of doing this. So let's talk about sort of like fundraising overall, right? So I talk about the US market. A lot of folks think like, well, fundraising is so easy in the US, like they have so much money over there. So I'm going to do my startup and I'm going to come over to the US market. Ironically, it's like red, right? I have it red here as big red zone, but it's a huge, huge market. But what I would tell most startup founders is that if you want to raise money in the US, you need to have at least 40% of your customers or your user base of traction in the US. No US investor is going to give you money to go and figure out how to crack the US market. You need to have US traction already before you decide to come and fundraise in the US. And I see this all the time because of the fact that out of the 400 plus companies I've invested in, over a third of them are actually founders and companies from outside of the US. So even if you're a Canadian company, you have a lot of Canadian traction, you have no US customers, you will not be able to raise money in the US. So just something to keep in mind is that the 40% rule, the general rule is that you need to have at least 40% of your traction in customers. All right. The other big question, right? Like talking about sort of like COVID or whatever, like one of the things you have to be very, very honest about with yourself is that, are you in a space that is a COVID beneficiary? So examples of COVID beneficiaries, e-commerce, right? Or remote work related things, or B2B digitization software or cybersecurity. So being honest of like, are you in a space that is like seen as very, very positive? Or are you a COVID casualty? So COVID casualty would be the travel industry, right? Where the business has actually shrunk. I think like literally gone down like 90%. And so understanding that if you're a COVID casualty, like highly impacted, so for example, commercial real estate or SMB related sort of like industry, it's going to be very, very hard to fundraise. And so just understand that like sort of depending on the space that you're in, understand the bigger landscape and decide, like, does it make sense for you to fundraise or not? And I'm just giving you some bigger picture things, but these are some questions you have to ask yourself. And unfortunately, like it or not, we are going to be in this pandemic situation for at least another year or so. So like what we've experienced in 2020, I don't expect that to change through 2021 and probably part of 2022. So understanding your real situation is important. And so this, a lot of the things we talk about are like, do fit in the larger trend of where things are going, right? Whether it's demographic trends, whether it's sort of even like industrial trends as well, and sort of like technology adoption trends. And so I'll give you some examples of just like areas of like obvious interest and growth that I think are like doing very, very well now, and that are sort of where our positive trends if you happen to be in this space. So things like edutech, right? Like most schools across the world are now doing this digital. That has, education tech prior to March was not very sexy. It's very sexy now. Digital healthcare was not really sexy before because of COVID. It's actually incredibly interesting for investors now. E-commerce as well as e-commerce infrastructure are very, very obvious areas of interest. Other areas of interest, I think, like are less sort of like talked about, warehouse and delivery automation, supply chain management software, Internet of Things, and manufacturing 4.0, things that help digitize what used to be a very human-driven process. Especially now, like in the COVID world, these are areas that are like deep, deep interest of investors. Other areas of growth, gaming, very, very interesting for investors now. Media and enterprise SaaS, as well as sort of like, I would say SMB focused SaaS is also starting to grow again too. And so, but having said that, these are also areas that investors are actually really quite interested in. And so let's talk about the US and sort of this, what I call the Las Vegas of work. Like there's these myths that I think you want to be very careful about, like, don't read too much of sort of like read TechCrunch and things, get an understanding of what's going on. But there, unfortunately, a lot of the blogs and things that go out there's a lot of myths, right? So unfortunately, you read about these blogs where it's like success looks like this, this sort of like very, very easy path, when the reality is that this stuff takes a long time. And so the dirty secret, whether of building startups and the dirty secret of actually fundraising, it always takes longer and it's harder than you really think it is. So most startup founders, they're usually suffering and struggling for like 2 to 3 years before they find product market fit. Most fundraisers are not instantaneous. Most fundraise processes, the fastest I've seen a fundraise process actually happen is usually 2 to 3 months. It usually takes a long time. It's never 1 or 2 weeks. It's not like everything that you read. So I just understand that there's a lot of work in fundraising, and it's not the magical process that like stuff happens instantaneous, right? So this idea of just like, oh, there's so much VC money out there, and so this is an easy thing. It's actually not. So it's really, really hard. So for example, for like almost for every single like company that sort of like tries to raise money, like as you go down the rounds, it just gets harder and harder and harder. And that path just gets more challenging over time, right? So I'll give you an example. Out of these like over 1,000 startups that raised seed money, there were probably 10,000 startups that started around the same time they did. A lot of them end up dying. And so this is a very, very hard process to raise money. Most companies do not end up raising VC money. And so just understand that path. It's not that simple. So there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be sharing with you as to sort of how can you increase and sort of how do you make your chances and increase your chances of fundraising success. So a big part of this, now we're going to talk about like the tactics and the pieces of fundraising that you need to do before you start the fundraising process. So number one is you got to do your homework, right? Like, so for a full fundraising process, it's typically between 3 months from beginning to end. And a big part of that, you're probably spending at least 3 to 4 weeks of just doing a lot of homework, of research on the investors, building your list, building your investor deck, building your story. There's a lot of homework. The actual fundraising process itself will be probably about 1 to 2 months. And so most fundraising processes are usually 2 to 3 months minimum. It's never been anything faster. So a big part of it is doing your homework. And so we're going to talk about some of these fundraising basics and elements that you need to sort of components that you need to have to get right for your fundraising and increasing the odds of your fundraising success. All right, I'm going to stop right now. All right, Lena, is this a good pace? I'm just making sure. Are we good? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so a very, very big part of it, and I think this is something I learned. I'm a Canadian, so I've been living in the US now for 21 years, and I think this is something that Canadians and Europeans really need to spend a lot more time on, is this storytelling aspect. And so the storytelling aspect, I'll give you an example of you always use the example of Pixar, right now part of Disney. And people who watch like Pixar movies, the example I use is like, you know how much time, like when somebody makes a Pixar movie, like how much time they actually spend on animating the film versus sort of like the storyline and building the storyline. They spend only 20% of their time on animating the film. They spend 80% of the time on the storytelling aspect. And there's actually been a lot of research now that if you're trying to pitch with just facts only and numbers only, it actually doesn't work. Storytelling, or just like learning the skill of storytelling, something the Americans are really great at. This is the way you shortcut investors' brains. So if you think about human beings in general, like we grew up in tribes, right? Like passing stories to each other. There's a reason why like fiction is way more powerful than nonfiction. And so there's been a lot of research now showing that when you tell stories, it's a way to actually almost incept your idea into somebody's brain. That's why nonfiction is not as powerful as fiction. That's why as a founder, you need to figure out how to tell your story better, right? There's storyline. I spend a lot of time with my founders figuring out their story. And some elements of the story is size of the market, right? How big is the market that you're going after? If your market is like a small time, like, when you look at the market in the long run, if it's a small market, it may not be VC fundable, right? So understanding VC math is that every single company that we invest in needs to be potentially $1 billion business. And so if you're going after a small market where it's like there's 20 customers and this market's going to be like 50 million, that's a good business. It may not be a VC fundable business. So understanding sort of the size of your market, that part's actually really important. Has to be big, and I'm talking like billions of dollars. What does a competitive landscape looks like? And this is critical, right? Too many founders, when they talk about like, well, I have no competition, that's a big red flag for us as investors, right? So if you have no competition, like there's two reasons. If you go and say, I have no competition, number one thing could be, well, this market, you have no competition because there's no real market here. That's a concern. Or the second thing is just like you actually do have competitors, you just haven't done the research. That's also really, really bad. So, what does your competitive landscape looks like? Who are you competing with? That's you need to be able to tell the story there. The other part, besides just having competition, is how are you different and how are you better? And not just like 10% better, 5% better, even 20% better. It's like, how are you like 10 times better than your competition? Very, very important piece. And so if you look at sort of every single market now, every single market in the world right now, every single product in the world has a lot of competition now. Unlike 20 years ago, things have just changed. And so as an investor and you as a founder, you want to understand what is your edge? How are you going to win? This is a differentiation question. I think this is the most important piece on the fundraising piece of just like being able to explain to an investor and even to understand yourself why you are going to win and why you are different and substantially better. The other thing I talked about is product market fit, right? Like how close are you to product market fit? What are the signs and signals that show that you're close to product market fit? This is more art than science, but understanding this of just like what product market fit actually means for you and your business and your market. Being able to tell the story, like even better if you have growth and traction, right? If you're fundraising and you have growth and traction of like real customers, real users, I might not believe, I don't believe that's a huge market, or like, I don't know if you can execute, but if you show me traction, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You have users, you have customers, so something must be going right. There's something interesting or useful happening there. That perks up our eyes as investors, right? And it's data points that show that something's working. A big part in early stage, and particularly in the pre-seed and seed stage, which I operate in, is the team, right? Like, as a team, this is, I would argue, because there's not a lot of data in general, unless you have like crazy good traction, in the beginning, it's actually all about like obviously market and differentiation is important, but a big part is the team. Why are you the unique and the best team to go after it, of this business? And a big part of it is, are you a balanced team? Like doing startups is so hard. So like, are you a balanced team? You have somebody that's really, really strong on the business side, somebody that's really, really strong on the technical side. In this day and age where design and UX is actually quite important, like somebody that's, what we call the hipster, somebody that's actually quite strong on the user experience side, right? The design side now. If you look at almost all the leading startups and all the leading companies right now, they're all very, very well-designed companies. I'm not talking about the website, I'm talking about the actual product itself. They tend to be very easy to use, right? And so this is just something to understand. It's just like, we're looking for balanced teams. This is something that we see because of just like how difficult it is with the startup journey. Having at least 2 founders at minimum sort of be complementary is really important. And the other thing I look for as an investor is, are you a missionary or mercenary, right? Missionaries are like, I'm doing this to make a lot of money, versus sort of like, mercenaries, like that's what they care about, versus missionaries. And the reality is that for most investors, we're looking to invest in missionaries, right? We're looking for people that are going to be working on this for the next like 9 to 10 years. Because like this is a really hard journey, right? Like I admire startup founders who start their businesses. Like I'm not saying it's easy, but like, this is an adventure and a journey. And the founders that tend to do better tend to be ones who like are working for like a real cause and mission, right? We talk about the mission, like versus like, for example, if you're mercenary, you're like, I'm doing this because I want to make a lot of money. This is a really hard way to make a lot of money. And so when things get hard, they quit. And so just understanding like, why are you doing the startup stuff? Like, yeah, money is important, but if you look at almost all the best entrepreneurs in general, yeah, they're motivated a little bit by money, but ultimately they're motivated by the bigger cause and serving their customers and fixing a big problem. All right. And also that we want to understand what's the vision and your big thinking, right? Of just like, how is this going to have like an impact, like a big impact on the world, hopefully a society positive impact. As investors, like there's a reason why I don't invest in gun companies or invest in like things like Juul, right? Like, like the vaping companies. Like, I don't think those are like positive things for people or the society or for the world. And so I think most investors I know who are, I think generally speaking, good people, we want to invest in technologies that legitimately are positive and helpful for the world. And so understanding that is really important. And I hope that's what, if you're going to start a company, that there is a bigger picture here for yourself too, to motivate yourself. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about like sort of the different type of investors and the characteristics of different investors. And so I'm going to liken sort of angels, different types of angels, and then I'm going to talk about the at least my experience and what I've seen. So generally speaking, like, when you look at angels, like these are actually 2 of them are good friends of mine, like Renaud Visage and Kevin Hart from Eventbrite, like both very experienced entrepreneurs. Like you're looking for people who are like very, very well known, but also just like ex-operators, right? Kevin Hart is, I think, one of the best angel investors and probably one of the best founders around. And so what I would say is just like, if you're looking for angels, like you can't get better angels than these people. Like they're running businesses, they've run business before, they have money, and they're really helpful to founders. The next tier of helpful, sort of angel investors, I would say, are people who like from companies like this, right? Senior executives, people who've made money for these companies, because, like for example, if you're in the developers area or the e-commerce startup, like nothing better than getting, say, an executive from an e-commerce company, or if you're in the media business, like getting, like you're in the sort of like media startup world, nothing better than getting an angel investor who's like an executive or a business person, or an employee at one of these like sort of like good tech companies, because they understand the process and they can be helpful with their network to help you. Next thing, I'm mixed on this of just like angel groups. I think some angel groups are better than others. And so my worry with the angel groups is that a lot of the angel groups aren't very well organized, and a lot of them are just, at least in the US and Canada, they tend to be just clubs of sort of like well-off people who are dabbling in sort of like tech investing. But I think you have to sort of do your research and figure out, like, some angel groups are good, but most of them, in my experience, have not been very good. So if you are going to use these angel groups, generally speaking, do the research and see, and even if they're bad, like what I would do is just like use them as practice, right? To practice your pitch. That's how I think about angel groups in general. Don't count on getting money from them in general. That's been my experience and my company's experiences. And then the last is sort of like the angels, like people who are like not from the industry, from the tech industry, don't understand startups. So like doctors, like unless you're in the medical tech or the healthcare area and you're raising money from like these folks, that's different. But for most like startups, like a lot of these doctors and dentists have like a lot of money and they want to play around in this. Just be very careful. They might give you money, but they're a pain in the ass because like they don't actually understand startups and they usually are not helpful. And so just be careful, manage your expectation, but their mentality is a little bit different. So you just need to understand there's some education you need to have with them. Family offices. So these tend to be sort of like very, very wealthy families. And like I said, different types of family offices. Like there are some family offices they've made a lot of money from, say, technology. Because they've done that, they will probably have a better understanding. Or for example, if you're in the real estate tech space, sometimes a family office of people who've made money from real estate tech could be helpful for you, right? So just understand that there's different flavors of family offices, just like there's different flavors of angel investors. So these folks tend to be sometimes like family offices of 100 million, even $500 million, and they're looking to sort of invest in their assets in different startups. Sometimes they can be good, but a lot of them are still learning the trade, and so these also are good people potentially to sort of like talk to, sort of to raise money from. Venture capital, so different stages of VC, right? So, just to explain sort of how venture capital works, when I was a VC, I would go out and raise money from like pension funds and universities and big companies, and I would invest on their behalf, right? So they give me money, I put it into a fund, and my job is to invest in very, very specific types of stage of companies and very specific industry for companies. To make money for them, right? So that's sort of what venture capital is. So usually I operate at the pre-seed and seed stage. And so one of the things that you want to understand is that when you're talking to VCs, just make sure that you're talking to investors that are specific for your stage, right? Like if you're a seed stage, you're trying to raise a seed round, there's no point talking to a Series B or like a Series B and up VC. They're just not going to invest in your company because it's just like too early for them, and vice versa, right? Like like there's just no point. Like if you're like a later stage, it's a waste of time talking to a different stage. You just understand, like there are very different stages of all the different VC funds, and so do your homework. And understand the VC strategy is a home run strategy. I alluded to this earlier about sort of like why, like, the go big and go home, right? So understand that if you're going to go down the VC path, like we would rather you go all out and like grow like crazy and become like a multi-billion-dollar company, like try to go swing for the fences based on the baseball analogy, then sort of like grow slowly. That's not interesting for us. We want you to grow fast and go big or die, right? Like just like that's the way that sort of VC is structured. Because like the way we think about our deals is that we know we're building a portfolio. So we know that we will only make money from 1 out of 10 of our companies. Most of our companies are going to die. So that one company has to make so much money to make up for all the companies that die. So just understand this is sort of like how VCs think. And so this is a very specific path for founders to understand. And so, like I said, the structure is, as a VC fund, what we do is we raise money from LPs, right? Pension funds, insurance companies, wealthy families, like companies. They give us money. We take this money, put it in the fund, and we invest it into a portfolio of companies, of startups. And for me as an early stage guy, like we hold this for 10 years and hopefully we make money from that. The LPs, these limited partners, and us, we share the profits, assuming we make money. So that's sort of what a VC, just to understand how the VC structure is and why we think the way that we think. Our job is to make money for our investors, right? We're investors raising money from other investors. And this is one of the things that you have to do research on, of just like, are we special? Like every VC is different. There are some VCs are focused on a specific stage, that focus on a very specific industry. There are some VCs who only do fintech. There's some VCs who do, and there's some VCs who invest in everything, right? There's some VCs who invest in biotech only. And so just make sure you do the research on the investor before you go out and try to fundraise, right? Because there's nothing worse than showing up. I see this all the time of, being a seed stage VC, and we have a company show up and they didn't do the research and they go, I'm trying to raise like $20 million. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm a seed stage VC, like I'll do like 1 or 2 million, like that's too much. Like you didn't do your homework. That's a no, right? So just like do your homework on the VC fund, of the type of deals that they do and sort of like the stage that they do. And so one of the things, like, in the post-COVID world, they're just like, are VCs actually open for business? And I would say yes. Like the VC industry kind of shut down in March, April, and May, but actually in June and July, like I say up until the elections, at least I can speak about the US. I can speak about Europe too, to some extent. Like it's been really, really crazy right now. A lot of the VCs they've all raised a lot of money, not me. They have all raised a lot of money, like billions of dollars, like last year. They have to spend this money. And so even though there was a break like March, April, May, even early June, like VCs have just been spending money like crazy. So there's been a lot of deals being done in the pre-seed and seed stage side. And so the good news is the pandemic hasn't actually slowed down the fundraising environment. It's actually probably made it even more crazy, which I didn't think that was possible. So that's good news for founders right now, in my opinion, at least in the early stage. And so as I mentioned to you, right, like this quote, the venture capital business is 100% game of outliers, right? And so every year, like there's really only like 15 companies every single year out of 10,000 companies that get started every single year that generate all the returns. So that's why I mentioned you, this is a hits-driven business. So understand that this is a go big or go home. And so this is not the path for everybody. This is a very stressful thing if you're going to go down the VC fundraising path of just like the type of business you have to build. So just to explain. All right, so let's talk about some very, very specific tactics, right? And so a very, very big part, whether you're doing this digitally, whether you're doing this sort of like, live, granted the COVID's not gonna be forever, but this idea of just like, you need to learn to network and build relationships, even digitally, right? Ask for sort of like 15-minute calls, get introductions, but like, this is one of the most critical pieces of fundraising. And I'm going to stress this, right? And the reason for this is introductions, all right? So I'll tell you, like I get pinged like on Facebook, on LinkedIn, cold emails from like people I have no idea, like, hey, I want to raise money. And I can't answer all of them. And so the way I filter is through introductions, right? So I've invested in over 400 companies now. I have a fairly large network. I have a lot of investor friends. The way I filter deal flow, the way I invest, and the way most investors invest is through warm intros. So if one of my founders that I've invested in goes and says, hey, Marvin, I want you to go talk to this founder. They're really awesome. I want you to go take a look at this deal. I will take that meeting. I may not invest or not, but I will always take that meeting. And so this is the way that we filter. And you're like, why are introductions really important? Because think about it from our world, right? There's just so much deal flow there. So these introductions are really, really important to help us filter from the noise. And it's also a test, right? So I'll give you an example. It's just like, like I have, I think close to, like 6,000 or 7,000 like connections on LinkedIn, right? Like, I know some people. And so for me, where it's like, okay, like if they're between LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, the networks of just like, I'm in the startup ecosystem, I've been in the startup ecosystem for 21 years. Like even if you're new to the ecosystem, like if you are very creative and you're sort of like just savvy, I use the word savvy, you should be able to find a way to get to me, right? Like, let's say you become friends with Lena and you go, hey, Lena, like, hey, would you be open to introducing Marvin to me? If Lena said, hey, Marvin, like I met this founder, like they're a good friend, like they're awesome, you should meet her. I'd be like, okay, like I'll have a call. I'll be willing to have the call. It's a test. It's a test of like, can you find a way to get to me? It's a test of creativity, right? It's a test of grit, because it's the same thing. Like if you cannot find a way to get to me, how are you going to find a way to get to other investors? How are you going to find a way to get to customers? Like, so it's like, it's a test. And so if you cannot find a way to get an intro to me, I'm just like, how good are you as a founder? It doesn't matter from what world you're in. Like, you should find a way to get to me because I've invested in so many companies. And that means that you need to find someone that's willing to vouch for you. That's really important. All right. The other part, now in this new world, this is a benefit for you, in my opinion. You don't have to show up in Silicon Valley anymore, right? Like where the old days are just like the way you fundraise, you have to show up live in Silicon Valley. Now, like the world has flattened. And so most of the time, we have a lot more time now. So we'll take more Zoom calls. Like maybe it's a 15-minute call, but like make sure you know how to run a good meeting on Zoom. Like be really organized and be really, really structured. You also need to be way more energetic on Zoom. So, there's a lot of sort of like cues, communication cues that you just can't have on, like there's a huge advantage when you're actually doing this like live, right? Like face to face, way harder on Zoom. So how you structure your calls, the video calls, and you have to show way more energy on it. So you need to be able to learn how to do Zoom calls, be very organized and show higher energy. Drink lots of coffee, doesn't matter. Just like the point is just like you need to show extra energy on Zoom because it's very hard to get people's engagement. Works for sales too. This is relevant not just for fundraising, this works for customers too. All right, and what I'll say is just like when you're doing your fundraising, you have to treat it like enterprise sales. Use a CRM system, track your leads, follow up, use a CRM system to follow and track where investors are dropping out, following up on them, making sure you're closing the loop, right? What I find is the best fundraisers are people who have sales experience, people who know how to sell to big companies, because that process is exactly the same, right? Making sure you follow up. Okay, hey, I'm going to follow up next week, answer any questions, make sure you're getting to the next meeting. So always pushing the fundraise along, right? So every single meeting, structuring the fundraising and making sure you're following through. This is really, really critical, right? And so even though this is my last slide, so even though it's like, we talked a lot about fundraising, just understand that fundraising is a tool and it's part of the process. And so there's this great saying I love, it's like congratulating an entrepreneur for raising money is like congratulating a chef for buying the ingredients. It's just the beginning. Like that's when the hard work begins, right? You get the money, now you have to go build an awesome company with the money. This is when it becomes very, very hard. And so that's kind of like my overall presentation on fundraising. Let's sort of like talk about sort of like why I'm excited for all of you on sort of like the startup world. They're just like, yeah, COVID sucks. It's going to suck for a while. It's going to suck for the rest of this year. It's going to suck in 2021. But boy, like I think about like when there's still a lot of money out there right now. So VCs are investing a lot. I think that there are very rare opportunities in the world that in all of our lives right now where everything has changed. Consumer behavior has changed. I think that sort of like politics and everything's changed. And when that happens, there's huge opportunity. And so I know many of us have had, well, not me, but most people, like a lot of people, it's been a rough year for a lot of people, right? Like for most people in the world, for most countries. But, it reminded me of like, in the world in 1918, right? Like World War I ended, the Spanish flu happened. And, in Spanish flu, something close to like 50 to 100 million people around the world died, right? But remember after that, like, yeah, it sucked for like till maybe 1920, 21. But there were like crazy boom times. And the 1920s were an incredible time from growth of technology, growth of sort of like culture and art and economy. And so I think the exact same thing is going to happen, after 2021, is that ahead of us as startup people in the technology business, in the business world, in the world, I think that we're preparing. Like, I'm really, really excited for all of us. If just like we can make it through the rest of this year and make it through end of next year, I think we're going to have some really, really exciting times and some really great opportunities ahead of all of us. So, even though, it sucks now, survive, there's going to be some great opportunities, and it's going to be a great time for you as a founder. And so questions,
Okay, So I just wanted to say, if there are any questions, please let us know. I also had some questions for you, Marvin, meanwhile, the presentation. I really liked it. I really liked the way, as you said, you were trying to go through the kind of like main points and keep it straight on and simple. You were saying about the angel investors, and you mentioned a couple of details on the varieties and on the things that you should pay attention to and should not pay attention to. And I was wondering if you could give any kind of like either practical examples or some key points of what you should think are or would be the most important things that a person should pay attention to when they're looking for an angel investor. What would be the kind of like the key points that you would say are the ones, let's say, contacts or yeah.
Great question. So number one, like, I think like getting somebody like a Kevin Hars, right, or Renaud Visage, who like they built a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And they're also good investors and they have a huge network of investors and like everybody, right? Even potential customers. And they really, like, if you ask around with their reputation, they are very helpful to their founders. Like founders really, like, they're generally like, they are 10x investors. They help way more than their money. And so that's one criteria. Next criteria, just like, so for example, if you're in the advertising market, you're building an ad tech business, right? They're really like awesome, like, because like they can help you get customers. They have like a deep understanding of the industry. Those type of angel investors are, I think, also legitimately helpful because like I'll give you an example. I was an angel investor in a company, in an ad tech company. And I'm not bragging, but like, oh, I'm so helpful. But like, I've been in the industry for like 12 years. So like, I made introductions that led to like 40% of their customer base, right? Like, just like, so like, you're looking for people who can either give you insight in the industry, you can make introductions to either potential partnerships or potential customers. So, stuff like that, right? Or can be really helpful. Just, I'm going to help you build your sales team or give you advice on how to build a marketing team, whatever it is, like something like that. Versus like there are other investors who, like, if you're like an investor from, say, for example, like non-tech, if they are from the industry, can be helpful in the industry you're in. But if they're not in the industry that you're in, say, for example, you're in the ad tech space and you take money from a real estate investor, they're probably not going to be very helpful, right? Like if they haven't done it before. And I think like their rules are very different. They tend to be very predatory. And what I find is that most investors kind of like are just useless. Like they don't know anything, they give you bad advice. And so I think just understanding like their savviness, I use that term, and just like, have they done tech investing before? If they've done a lot of it, then they can potentially be helpful, right? Because of just like they have experience. But if they've never done it before and they're not from the industry, it's just money at that point in time.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. You also mentioned before that this pandemic has actually shaken up, or you used something else, some other words, made the VC business more crazy. What did you mean by that?
It's just become more competitive. So just like, I think it's reshifted. So a lot of VCs have had to learn how to do deals on Zoom. And also just like, because there's just so much activity now, it's become very competitive. So the hot deals are really hot. They're super competitive for the hot deals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of nutty right now. Like I thought the pandemic would really impact the fundraising environment really badly. That actually didn't happen. It's gotten crazier. And one of the surprises, I didn't see that. I'm still surprised. I'm still surprised by what I see.
Yeah, so by your words, it hasn't slowed down, but at
It's
least
not.
in the region or the part that you're in, maybe have you seen or heard any slowing down in other regions or in other places, or maybe specifically around any startups or topics? And someone, as you mentioned, there are like more growing topics.
So the slowdown, like for example, the travel space, like, okay, oh my God, just it's devastating, right? Like that's really hard. There has been a slowdown there. In certain parts of fintech, there's been a slowdown. Other parts of fintech, it's been really huge. Yeah, so it just depends on the sector. But like overall, in the pre-seed and seed stage side, it is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Okay. Yeah, it is very interesting to hear. I would assume the same thing, and I would assume that it kind of I don't know, at least in the first months of kind of realizing what's happening and what's going on, it would at least slow down. That would be my first instinct. And
Yeah,
it's
it's slowed down.
really great to hear that it's actually creating much more interesting effects, and that people are adjusting, but adjusting in a way that has created even a kind of like a different movement or structure. And as you say, if it is becoming more competitive, it's going through a new wave.
The thing that's interesting, it did slow down. March, April, May was like super quiet. There are no deals being done. But like, boy, June, July, August, it got super nuts. Right? It's been nuts since then. I'm expecting to slow down right now. I think a lot of people, at least in the US, are very distracted for understandable reasons. And so there has been a slowdown in general. Like this week, there's definitely been a slowdown for, as you all know, right? And unfortunately, I think it's going to be like Thanksgiving is like in 3 weeks from now, like it's going to be really slow for deal flow for the rest of the year, I think, is my guess.
Yeah. Have you actually noticed any trends around, not specifically about the pandemic, but is there data around kind of fundraising, good and bad, or kind of like better or worse deals around the calendar of the year? Because there have been research around
seasonality is a real thing, right? So at least in the US, like, bearing in mind this is a weird year, so my expectation is going to return to something similar to this, where typically for fundraising in the US, it's usually like middle of January through to like June, like near end of June. That's prime fundraising season. Then it kind of slows down from like weeks, slightly a couple days before 4th of July to, I'm gonna say, like middle of August. And then so the reason is school starts middle of August. So a lot of people come back from vacation or whatever. So it kicks up again, where 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago, it used to be like seasonality, used to be like fundraising kicked off in September, but because now they've changed the school season now. So it starts like middle of August now, at least in California. A lot of people are back and working like middle of August. So fundraising is, at least in the US, from mid-August through to like second, third week in November. And then it really slows down. So there is some seasonality.
Yeah, and I would think so, because there is with other things as well, and with other
hot deals still get done, right? Like stuff still gets done, even during that times. But like that's a unique situation, right? Like for most startups, that's not the case.
Yeah, we had another question from the chat that was someone was asking is, have you explored deep tech? I think it's a very broad question, but maybe you can kind of want to elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I've explored it, right? So deep tech is a very broad subject. So like nuclear power, those type of things. I've looked at it. I don't know if I have deep understanding, because like there's real technological valuation. I'm a software and hardware investor, so slightly different. So I would say it's a very different beast.
Yeah. I would assume so too.
And the rules of fundraising is still somewhat similar. Like these basic rules I talked about are still similar, but there are some nuances to fundraising with deep tech.
You also mentioned the warm introductions. Is there anything that you can elaborate a bit of what you would expect at a warm introduction with a startup?
Yeah, no, the warm introduction is just like, so for example, it's this like, just Google Silicon Valley etiquette, right? So for example, let's just say let's say your friend Joe wants to get in touch with me, and you're like, wow, they're doing something really, really cool. And so it's just, you should be like, the way the warm intro works is that Joe pings Lena and say, hey, Lena, I'm looking to talk to Marvin because I'm trying to fundraise. And I think like, I've looked at his portfolio. Here's some companies that I think like are relevant, like in this portfolio that are like either similar or whatever, where it's like, I think what we're doing is interesting. Here's a description. And so the way that it works, the what we call like the not just a warm intro, but the forwardable email. So they send an email to you, Lena, you forward it to me and just go, hey, Marvin, are you interested in talking to this person? And I'll look at it and go, oh, you say yes and no. So it's a double opt-in intro. That's the right way to do it. And so you'll send it to me. So I get the option of like, okay, am I interested in this? So I can say, no, not my space, not interested. You go back and tell them. Or it's the yes, like this is like really, really interesting. And you'll go back to them and just go, all right, great. And then you'll make the intro to us. That's the way that it works.
So, yeah, I was wondering, what's the startup side? Well, what is expected from that side, and what is well, as you mentioned, being energetic on Zoom is a key thing, and being fairly assured about what you're standing by.
Be organized. How many Zoom meetings, and they've wasted 5 minutes trying to get like the tech to work, right? So you need to have a plan of just like, if you want to share your deck and it's not working, just like just be able to like talk to it, and vice versa, right? And so just like you have to learn how to be super flexible and be structured. Like, okay, if I can't get this thing to share properly, I'm just going to go talk and just jump into it, not waste time.
Okay, perfect, Marvin. If there are no other questions, and we've talked through most of them, and there's nothing more, then I'm gonna thank you, Marvin, for today's lecture. It was really, really interesting. I think I learned as much as everyone else, and we really love to have you here. So thank you for this, and thank you for sharing your presentation, really.
All right, take care, everyone. Be safe. I'm gonna try to stop sharing and get out of here.
Please do.
All right, take care, everyone. All right, bye.
Bye. Thanks, Marvin. And as you can see, Marta has joined as our second presenter. And Marta will share her experience, and will share anything that is from her experience about finding funding, and specifically for her. It's interesting to understand that she can share any knowledge that she has around this specific region that could be useful to you. So please do ask questions in the chat if you have anything specific to ask her during her presentation, and I will help you and help to moderate them afterwards, so Marta doesn't have to worry about it while she's presenting.
Okay, I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, money Latvian startups. So, hello everyone. I'm very happy that I can join this project and Tech Hub, and I'm very happy that we have such a place where startups can learn something. So, my name is Marta. I'm a little bit startup doctor. So it means that I'm mentoring, listening problems, give my feedback, give inspiration to do something. And yes, I am now director of one of the startups. So everything what I learned from the business angels and from startups what's failed and startups what's raised in the skies, I can now do it in my startup. I am their director and not founder. That's why it's just experience. What else? If you find me in Facebook, if you find me in LinkedIn, or you see my contacts, please feel free to ask afterwards stupid questions. There is no stupid questions. You can ask me about legal tech projects where I am very helpful, and military tech projects if you want to know something about that. But the most important, I'm working with the teams what's need to raise the business goals, motivate the team, understand relationship between the founders, and so on. So let's talk about where to dig money. And of course, everybody knows that there is so many ways where to find money. So we will talk step by step what is going on right now in Latvia, and I will tell you a little bit where to look forward. So the most important thing is that in Latvia we have very sweet and very helpful community. So basically, if you write something example to Tech Hub and ask some kind of question, they will reply to you. The second thing is to understand where you are now, and you can answer yourself what is your stage. And in Latvia, we have the roadmaps. We have a lot of things to understand where you are now. Self-financing is, of course, very nice because you spend your money and you give feedback and reports only for yourself and for your, maybe for your team. But there is, of course, problems with that you need to eat and you need to pay the bills. And that is not pity, but mostly it's the way that when you build a startup, you still working somewhere other place. And investors don't like that. But in beginning, when you are just, let's say it's just a project and you just figure out what you want and just you not definite your diapason of your clients and you still don't understand what kind of business model you will choose, then definitely it's free space for you to like play this sandbox and understand that, and then self-financing, it's okay. You can do that. But the next thing is like friends and family investors. So there is some plus and some minus. Friends and family, there always need to be strict rules. Like example, have stories about from Silicon Valley where one project make this round with family and friends and get 1 million euros. I don't know how many good friends you have and family friends, but not all of us can do that. So you need to understand what kind of relationships you will have with this person. And I always need to remember, it's not just saying that have this quote that not make a business with a family. So you need to be very straight rules with that, and that everybody understand what will happen if you fail. And other case, what will happen if you get lucky. So be very careful with that kind of relationship. Other case, everybody, I think from the startup world knows what is 3 Fs. It's friend, family, and fools. Who can in that stage give you some kind of information and give you some money, but it's not always good. So need to be in the beginning, you need to be very let's say careful with that. In Latvia, of course, it depends what kind of family you have. Co-financing platforms in Latvia, we don't have like that, but you can look, a little bit to Estonia, a little bit to England. It's very nice idea how to get, pre-sale for your startup project. It's very nice to understand. You don't need to give back the money, or you just need to give some product or something like that from this not co-working, but co-financing platforms. It's a very nice place where to test your project. But there is some minus, and the minus is your project visualization need to be very good, very, very good. But we have projects in Latvia which did that, and that's the good sign. Just ask who did that, and you will get, meeting with them, talk with them, and how they did it, and how much they raised, and so on. This is like the most popular platforms, where to Kickstarter, I think is the closest one, but please check it out, which one is better for your project. Incubators. In Latvia, we're super lucky because we have university incubators. We have 15 incubators in LIA. We have clusters and other places where you can test your business idea, like in real life, get the best mentoring, ask different kind of questions, ask help, and the people will help you. You can get grants, you can get support, and basically do everything and do this project, and my team is what I'm looking for in the business world. We have Latvian University, business incubator actually were two hours before I mentoring projects who are there. It's very interesting. They have interesting projects, mentors, and basically very nice farm ground. So is the one of the things. Of course, have different other incubators in Latvia, which you can check it out. I just write, some of incubators, what you can get from them, and but basically are pretty the same. That you can test your business idea and you can understand that your business model. Do your team like to work together? What kind of relationships you have with your clients? Do you understand and do you have data about your clients or potential clients? How to get them? Because it's very stupid to make some kind of project and make visualization that let's say that most of the stories have that I had a problem and I figure out to fix like this. Where's the data that you prove that other people have the same problems? We have one startup who told that whoever feel bad, feel shame of himself in the gym, in this sports field, and who wants to answer that? Where do you get data from that? So we have another one where you can, incubator, you need to find with that what kind of support you need, what kind of relationships you need, or knowledge you need, or basically, and how much money you can get, and the other things. So please be careful and check it out, what is the best for you. So in beginning, incubator is very nice place where to test your idea and a little bit save your money. Accelerator funds, it means that you tested in the incubator, that you have very nice project, maybe get some clients, then you understand your target goals, you have business goals. Very important. I will talk later a little bit about business goals. And now you understand that you need to be a little grow faster, you need to raise a little bit more money, and you are ready to give small shares to this fund who gives you money. I will tell a little bit more where is the devils are devil are in the details, but in Latvia we have accelerator programs, very nice. We have commercialization reactor if you are in science project, like deep tech project and so on. We have build it if it's hardware accelerator, and everything will be about that. Time after time, startup wise guys make super great programs with super mentors. Yes, it works. Overkill with not only in fintech projects, but with the SaaS and other kind of projects working. And I really suggest check it out, Baltic Sandbox program. Time after time, they of course sharing with the fund money, but mostly they have very super great program for projects where you can sit like me right now in my office, and I can online listening the best mentor sessions. Very nice understand my numbers, very nice understand where is my problem in my team or my project, and get let's say Lithuanian like side of the business. It's very nice, it's communication, it's a lot of experience, and if you have a time, I suggest use this accelerator too. So, and then we start, go to a little bit more when it's called smart money. You can use that after the incubator too. If you have a good numbers, let's say, good trafficking to your web page, or you have very nice clients, or you have tested your product, you really understand that what is your client, you really good understand what is your business goals, because smart money you will get only if you know your business goals. And your business goal is not to get, I want to be in Scandinavia the #1, or I want to be in, I don't know, in Asia #1, or in Africa #1. No, it's a number. It's number, how much money you want to earn. Because then it's very easy to understand how much clients you need per month. And for investor, it's much more easy understand what he can get from you. Do you understand numbers, and so on and so on. Of course, there is some devil inside the business angels too. We will talk about that. But you need to understand, smart money means that you have smart business angel. It means that he have a contact, what you need, that he have maybe some market, what you're really looking for. He have money and mind and the contacts what to give to you. But it depends of the feeling and what kind of business angel you're looking for. You need to understand, if you will go with your project to Latban stage, with this Latvian Business Angel Network, then you need to understand that you can get there. Investor, it can be like that, but it can be that you get their experience. So it means you give your presentation, you get questions and so on. But in Latban, you need to understand that mostly they ask something when they drink coffee with you in networking. It's not happening on the stage that they ask a lot of, but you need to be prepared. Latban gives super great mentoring sessions. Super. I really suggest when you grow in that stage, go to Latban and talk with them. The second goes to Lithuanian business angels and so on and so on till you raise your money. And the most important, it's marketing. You show other stage what you have, and maybe they don't want investing in you right now, but when you come back on the stage after, I don't know, some period, I don't know, year or half year or something, they will remember you. And like example, have a lot of programs like Nordic Angel Program or Danish Business Angel Program do the same. It's very important that somebody invested in you previous. It can be accelerator too. But super great, it works if you have a business angel previous who invested, I don't know, some, let's say 50,000 euros. And then you go to Danish Bank and said like, hey, this is our investor. We need a second round. Can we, discuss and so on? Because business angels, they talk to each other. They have them networking and they ask about the teams. Yeah. Then is venture capital funds. So this is a very sensitive topic for me, because a lot of startups think that, we can get 1 million, and they eyes are full with the sparkles, but they don't understand the rules of how huge responsibility is to be in venture capital fund. And they don't understand that it's not marathon, it's sprint. And you need to be careful. You need to be very careful with your decisions, what you expect, how your team will work. You need to understand your risks and what will happen if you lose. It's very important. The second thing is understand the numbers. So how much money you take from them, after how many years you need to give them back, or do something with that. And it's always 5-7 years, not till 10 years. Some funds are, but mostly it's 7 years. So you need to be very good in math to think about a risk, what you take. In some cases, it's very good, but in some cases, it's not so. Venture capital fund want to see your money flow. They want to see how you work with your clients, what kind of relationship you have. They want to see numbers, a lot of numbers, and data analyzation. Do you yourself understand what you have, and do you understand how worth it you are? Of course, there is different kind of venture capitals, and if you are very interested in some special market and you have the clients and so on, you can ask me about something, but I will tell you that venture capital mentors can see in a lot of startup events. Tech Hub, when they making some events, ask venture capital funds to check it out and give the mentoring for the startups, because the venture capitals, they really like looking for, let's say, potential in some projects. Maybe you are right now very small, and they can give you just a mentoring. But after the 2 years, they ask you again, how are you? Your project was interesting, and so on. So make relationships with the venture capital fund mentors, owners, founders, and stuff like that. In Latvia, we have the best one. What's not the best one? What everybody like knows the most is Change Ventures, but together all the funds and understand what kind of money you can get is like is the Latvian Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, where you can see like everybody who is doing that, and they can help you with find the best venture capital, a lot of places in the world. So just communicate and check it out them, and thinking about do the deal is good, because money is always good, just deals are not. No, of course you can take some money from the bank. The sentence about what you need to remember is that how worth it is. Do you really need that? For linear business, it helps, but for startups, it depends on the situation. It may help. So there are some money givers in Latvia, which can give, really good risk analyzation and understand and give you some money and help you with the marketing and a lot of other things. And for me, the most, let's say, my favorite is Capitalia, because they are really good team, but experience are really different. You need to understand. You cannot talk with somebody who is been, let's say, in Capitalia and get, bad experience, or in Altum, we have projects who failed there and so on. You need to talk with many, people to get this authorization, what is your opinion, and go there and talk with them and understand and read a lot of documents from them to understand what they really ask from you. Then you can take grants like Norwegian grants and LIA and other things, not only from Latvia. You can raise some project money from, I don't know, a lot of places in Europe. What is the worst thing about that? It's very cool if you don't need to give some report about, but mostly to get grants, you need to give some documents, create some, let's say, give your time to get some money. And then you need to understand the money, what you take from the project, it's enough that you can spend a lot of hours write down, reports and so on. So free money sounds very good, but there is always some devil inside that. I suggest to check it out, our ministry, and check it out what kind of grants you can take. Find in LIA, Latvian Investment Agency, where to get the money, and a lot of things. And mostly you are in Tech Hub, you can ask here too. Let's say to the most the best part is to understand where you are. So the first thing about where you are is understand, do you have a team? How do you have all responsibilities in your team? Please understand, do you test your product? Do you know what is your client? It's very important. And how to understand that is just talk with the people, and not only ask them, do you buy this? Do you will buy this product, and do you need that? But make that with some couple questions, your client or potential client tells his problems. Because maybe after a while you understand that the product, what you create, need to be a little bit different, or you need to make relationships with your clients a little bit different way. And after this question areas, what you will get and answers, basically you have many week material for marketing and communication with your client, because you understand the problems. So you will have a data and you will have how to speak with them. Yeah, we all the time in my previous slides, we talk about where to get money and how awesome is to go to incubator, accelerators, different kind of projects and so on. But it's not so sweet and not so nice how it can seem to be. So let's talk about what is the problems in each segment. So when you're self-financing yourself, you are very depending about your mood, about your job, everything about your money. And the problem is mostly with the people who make self-financial investment, is that when they fail not only they, but them family, them nerve system, fails them not mental mind, and you maybe sometimes stop believing yourself. This is what I see from the projects. What's coming, and they tell always the numbers, how many thousands they invested in themselves. And then you meet them and ask how you feel about that, and mostly they feel bad. So you need, if you make investment in the project, you need to think what is the money, what you can invest, and where you need, to raise money or get, support from some other place. And we living right now in the, I will say, our one of our politicals, that we have so much money that never been in Latvia. But it's actually data that we have really a lot of public money and access to risk capital like not other places. But we have a problem that we have less projects who can take them. So don't be that thinking, if you invested in yourself, thinking about that, where's the limit of that? Friends and family investors, like I said, it sounds very nice and so on, but there is a lot of situations where it's a huge failure for relationships. And for the relationship, I mean that some families don't talk to each other, members. And with the friends, have a saying, give your friend money and there is no friendship at all anymore. So I will suggest be very prepared for different kind of situations and write a document that both sides, you understand what's the money and what's the situation with that. Co-financing platforms, again, sounds very nice, but I see many projects who have failed. They raise the money, but they cannot give the product what they what they need to give investors about this money, and that is failure. And again, bad emotions and so on. So need to really be careful about the financial ways. Incubators, I will say that incubators have much more plus than minus. What can be the minus is that you not get that kind of mentoring, what you're really looking for. You are not in the right incubator. Let's say about Latvian Investment Agency, mostly of this incubators are not built for startups. They are built for support, but like really for startups. Now they have new program for startups and so on. We'll see how it will goes. But yeah, if you are a startup and you are in incubator and you don't get, you know, this mentoring and to grow fast, then you feel pity a little bit about that. So really checking out the programs and checking out the mentorship, what you can get and from where and what kind of communication you have with that. About accelerators, easy, read all the papers, what they send you. Really, do that. Spend the time. Ask the offer and understand of the rules, because it can be bad deal. Let's say you take from accelerator money and have some situation that you want to make, you know, some new investor or business angel and so on, and accelerator don't like this guy, or maybe some kind of situations and so on. And it's again about the deal, what you sign, what for what you're signing this contract, how many parts and shares they take from you, and so on. Be very careful with that. Ask the offers, and you can do it for all accelerators, and then you will be very clever with that. And they, of course, they help you with that. But you need to understand it. Angel investor, please not make this mistake and not take investor the first what's ask you offer and give you offer and give you money. Because first of all, check it out, the investor. What kind of projects he invested previous? In what kind of markets? Do he have experience? Talk with the project where he is investor. Do they have good relationships? Check it out, your feeling. Feeling, I mean, do you like this person or not? If you don't like this person, you never will. It goes worse. Don't make a deal. Stop pleasing people. Angel investor coming with his vision and so on. Smart business angel, let you show him what you have, ask many questions, and helping you to find a way and not make mistakes, but not telling that you don't do anything. He can say that, looks like in your team have a little bit problem. Maybe you need to think about that and that. Fine, it's very good mentoring and it's very helpful. But you need to think about this investor experience. I worked in Latvian Business Angel Network, and I will tell that in many cases I understand that angels ask a lot in Latvia. It's very popular that business angel can ask you till sometimes till 40% from your capital shares. Again, you need to think what kind of contract you will have. Maybe it's good offer, but you can get, when you raise the money next time, he will give his part of the company and so on. You always never say no, but check it out. Be careful. Just be careful. With a business angel, you need to understand it's like a marriage. All the business is like a marriage, basically. Your team working and everything, it's marriage. But with the business angels, yes, and not be like that. Stop doing and stop telling that I don't want Latvian business angel. I will take business angel from the Finland on Sility value and so on. Stop doing that. Check it out. Do maybe investor what you're looking for is in your area. Of course, if you want to get in Norwegian market, of course, angel need to be from Scandinavia with the open Norwegian market. Venture capital funds, I said, need to be very careful. Read the papers, read and understand the deadlines and what they're asking from you, because it's the hugest failure, a lot of startups, that they don't understand till the end what they asking from them. And about the money, of course, it's very important. You need to understand how much money you take from them, how much money you need to give back. I was very, very happy that in Baltic Sandbox have every time before some mentoring session or accelerator lecture, the mentor write down the numbers, they tell the percents and everything, what they take, what the venture capital, and then they ask who can answer how much money you need to earn after the 7 years to give the back money and survive and so on. And they know, the startups know the answers. So for startups what's listening to me, do your homework. Check it out every time when you take some money or something, your numbers, and understand that you really understand the situation. Credits, of course, you can lose your house, your children's kidneys, and so on. So take money if you know that you will give it very fast back to credit organizations. Grants, be careful. Sometimes, and in Latvia it's very popular, that there is no difference if you get the grant 1 million or 10,000. The documents are huge, really a lot of them. So think about that. Can do that? Do you have resource for that? Do you have somebody who do it good, or you have mentor for that who can give you good advice? It depends. Be very careful. So what I want to tell you about this, let's say like stones under the water, be prepared. You know that in many military units have situation that the leaders say that you need to go to the point A to point B, and you don't know what will happen there. So the units sit around the table and they writing the scenarios, what can happen, because it sounds very easy. Let's say take just the money, I will give you, I don't know, million or 500, thousand euros. And you need to think all the time about what can go wrong. My team can fail and so on. So understand your risk, what you're doing. And you will be so happy if it never happens. But if it happens, you know what to do because you will think about that. So be prepared that it's really like a strategic way how to think. Okay, what everybody like waiting from you, and it's calculations, it's goals that you have, that you have intuition about the project and so on, how you lead it, and of course that you have all questions. You have not all questions, but you have answers to all questions. And the best way how to do it is take all the risk and go to every stage where you can get. For beginning, it's very, very important. Or talk with the people, always choose the mentors and people with what you talk who are more clever than you are. Take in your team people who are clever than you are, because then you will have this perfect symbiosis in the business. Everybody looking for a great team. Everybody looking for good marriage. Everybody looking for that they have a person with what to share something together and live them lives together. I told that because when you build a team, it's really marriage, what you're really creating. So it means that you need to spend the time with your team members, check it out them previous experiences in their lives, where they are good, maybe where they are not so good. it's very important that you not take the 5 people in your team who are opportunists or innovators, but they are different kind of the symbiosis between you guys. It's very important. The perfect team is like these 5 responsibilities, but in beginning, it's very cool that you are 3. It is okay. Just, you know, you need to all the time thinking about how you will build your team. Each team member need to imagine the perfect company where he wants to work, and it takes time. Please think about your team. Think about it. Not take, you know, your friends in your project and then gets angry when they are not doing how you wish everything. It's very nice if you have fights between your team members. So it means that when you start working together, please be good and write down the rules of how you will communicate it in situations where it's rough situations, where you're fighting about something. Who have the last word? Maybe you have 20 minutes like time zone where nobody's speaking with nobody, and you only think about it, or arguing something, and just think about your relationships, because it's very important. Spend time together. It's very important. Write down what you will do, what will happen if you will get a lot of money, because mostly teams fighting in 2 situations, where is too much money or there is no money. Not making situations that you not picking up the phone for some team member. You can imagine that you are married and your wife or your husband not picking up the phone. What's happened? Somebody is worried, somebody feels guilty, somebody feels angry. Not nice situations. So please communicate it. Any case, how angry you are to this person and so on, talk and communicate it. Latvia have a problem that the teams are not strong and they don't know how to build relationships. Please change my mind. Please learn how to build the teams. Presentation. You need to understand it's showing presentation or reading presentation. Yes, I see so many presentations in Latvian stage, a lot of other accelerator stage. I've been so many places like a mentor and see good presentations, bad presentations. The most important is to not fighting. Do your homework, make good presentation, tell the story, and now a little bit changing time. Not all investors right now want to hear that after the 5 years or 10 we will sell our project to Facebook or to Google. No, they're now looking for new Google, new Facebook. So checking out the newest styles of the presentation and actually build your visualization where you're going. Not fighting. It's very important when you give the presentation or something, never fight. And short answers, not long. You don't need to explain, short. If it's reading presentation, thinking of the fonts, what kind of fonts what kind of letters to use, and other stuff like that. And yeah, and that everybody from the presentation understand what kind of level, what you have and what you don't have. You cannot imagine how many times I see the project would give that presentation, and then you ask, do you have a client? Oh yeah, we have 2,000 like clients. This is the beginning. You need to start with that. So understand what kind of plus you can tell about your project with team and so on. It's very important. And in Latvia, when you give the presentations, like example in Business Angels, they want to see that you know the numbers and the risk of your business. It's not cruel that they ask that. It's I really love for the startups who are very, very young, the question about the market. Do you know the market? But still, it's right to answer that we have the data, but we still like targeting our clients. That's why we cannot say like perfectly the number and so on. Be fair what you are saying. And I think so for me, that's it. What I can suggest you talk. We have super nice ecosystem in Latvia. Use it. Use it that you're living in that kind of country where you can ask huge companies director or some programs director or tech hub or oriented, with the kind of people you are, and just ask, tell your problems. Every time when you talk with the mentor and so on, talk with the people and ask the help. And I always suggest for people when they give feedback, or you have opportunity on some stage, tell something, always ask something, always ask. Not only money, but I don't know, I need, I will say right now I'm looking for a very, very good B2B, business to business salesperson what's working in startup, need to ask. And I'm sure that somebody will reply to me. Always ask, then somebody will hear you. Not shy about your problems. Everybody have problems. So you can write me, you can call me, you can find me in Facebook, you can ask me different kind of questions about the business goals, about the team mentoring. You can ask me, let's say, what you think about that and that person's experience, and I will give my feedback or give you somebody who's better maybe, or tell my experience. So yes, I'm working in Sundays and 24/7. So feel free to ask me any kind of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. I'm sure you have holidays. I would really hope so that you do. Thank you for the presentation. It was really nice to hear through all of this. Yeah, so we have a couple of questions in the Q&A, but the first one that I also wanted to mention is that you shared a lot of the details that we've heard, some of it before and some of it actually not, about the possibilities of funding in the region, in this specific region. What would be your suggestion from your experience for a startup, or for a, let's say, a single person with one team member or two co-founders? What is the first go-to strategy to look for funding, or what is at least the first strategy if you already are building something and already have some ideas and you already started? What would be the first steps, and what would be the second steps for the one who already have, like, let's say, a very, very small
I understand.
MVP?
Yeah. I really understand the question. The first of all, what you need to start is to communicate with the ecosystem, to understand where is it the right place for you. It can be incubator, but maybe the project idea is so creative and so nice that you can maybe get some fundraising, not the fundraising, but some grant for LIA, for Latvian Investment Agency, and with kind of university together that test the prototype or test the market and so on, and get data, and then you can go to accelerator program maybe, or you can straightway go to business angels. It's never mind that you are only 2 persons in the team, but you will say, we are only a team, but we understand what we miss, this and this responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And some angels, of course, will agree with that and understand it. Everybody needs to start with something. I suggest that if you are 2 persons, tell who you are, what are your plus and what you're looking for, because nobody can, build something without nothing. So if you are really good in sales or marketing or creative mind, that maybe you're looking for a jerk who can be super honest with you and all the time tell the bad things to you. That's true. Or you're looking for and beginning. What is more important when you're talking with the people and get mentoring, you need to understand that they can just give you advice. Mm-hmm. They really don't care about you. They can give you advice. So you're looking for team members who really cares, who after the 3 days ask you, how are you? You ask me that kind of question, can we meet again? And I have some couple ideas.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. We also had a couple of questions in the chat before I started bunching you with all my questions. So we had a question about the fact that you mentioned the military and the working with the military. And the question was about, so that in the US, there is a load of funding for the military research. That is as far as we know. So please share what you know regarding about the military research funding, military research and the funding that is going through there. And there, yeah, and maybe any possibilities of how to, I assume, find it, or what's the approach, and what is the companies that you know that have had this opportunity?
I understand that we talk about Latvian companies who have, of course, one of those companies owners is Jānis and Sandis Kondrati. Everybody knows them. They have simulator. They have a lot of fundraising in military in Europe. Europe.
For those of who don't know, the company is Exonicus, and I will message you in the chat as well if you, for those of you who don't know the company.
Very good mentors, and they really share them experience. I have one project. What is product which cannot see under the thermovisors. So they too have support. And again, the roadmap for military, let's say military tech, is that you build something. You're talking with Latvian defense forces. You need to understand what kind of forces you talk. You work together with them and tested that. If the guys say, oh, this is good, this works, then you go to our government. They will support you. They will give you advice. Actually, in the webpage, you can find the information, because each year, European Defense Agency, they're making programs for military. Why it's about military segment why in USA it's so let's say understandable. It's because it's NATO, and many projects from Europe get money there. The second thing is the best way how to test your product before you go to, let's say, some European money for military way, is to get some feedback from Israel, because in Israel war is all the time. So they're not wasting time. They always will give you fast feedback. This is works or this is bullshit. If it's bullshit, ask them why. They will give you reports. If they not answer you, going to Latvian defense forces and not going, to our minister, going down, find the person who is in this unit. Like example, I'm working together with sniper units and with special units. So I go to them and ask them what they think, and so on. And then we like mentoring to this project and so on. So it's not true that there is no money in Europe for military projects, but I will say, like in Finland, they doing like that they sending message to each country. They can, all enterprises can join, and Finland Defense Forces tell what they need. And doesn't matter you are from India, Africa, doesn't matter, offer them, and they will get. The second thing I want to say again, that military projects which are in Latvia mostly get money from USA, because they are better buyers, because they want to be the first. So you need to think. But in Europe, you can get money all up to that. Do you are like the project? What is your market? You really need to understand what kind of units do you want to give, to the people. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there was another question about legal tech. So how hot is legal tech in Latvia / Baltics? And who are the leading stars, if any, and if you do know any?
I will say that right now it's Hugo Hugo is Estonian startup. Hugo is for lawyers online, that you can online book, some legal advisor, and for some, I think it was 40 euros per hour that you can get. They raise just 1.5 million fund. That's why need to check it out then. About the legal tech, the problem, or let's say the challenge, is that in each day, born, like example in Latvia right now too, because everybody getting crazy about AML, this that you need to prove your clients that he's legal and he's not, some spy from Russia or some very cruel person and so on, that you really need to check it out where he gets the money. From one side, it's very nice, because there is not, black washing money and so on. For enterprises, it's hell, because I know company, what is my client, my startup client, he have so many clients that he have right now 40 and more people who is all the time checking out the database. We creating like a simple way that it's one click and you get all the information. So each day gets born 10 legal tech projects and dies pretty the same. Why? The problem is how you build the team. The first, it cannot be, with IT guys, with legal, some team member. There need to be some crazy. Like example, in my project, I'm the crazy one. So you need to be full responsibilities. There's the second and the third thing is the second thing is that you need to understand that mostly these startups fail because they cannot convert not paying customer to paying customer. Yeah. So need to think about that, and that's the thing. But in the Baltic states, each day gets more and more. Yeah. Because it's not only Baltic state problem about this black money washing machine, let's say. It's all Europe, and it comes from USA, basically. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely sure for what you're saying about the paying customers. So that is something that we definitely know and have noticed. Okay, I don't think there are any more questions, as I bombarded in the beginning with mine as well. So thank you really, Marta, for joining us today and having a lovely presentation and sharing all the details about this region and your specific experience that you've had with our country and with the Baltics that you can share, and then hopefully the participants can learn from and use in their future experience. So thank you really for all of this. Okay, so for everyone else, this is the end of our this week's session, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. In case you have any questions, and in case some of you need more resources, we'll definitely ask Marta to share her presentation if she can, so that we can upload it with the recording as well. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for asking the questions, and we will see you all